Hello, everybody. I am Sparky, also
That's
known as Ryan, but you can call me Sparky.
yeah, it's Sparky, and Sparky is associated with the residents. You tell me how you're associated with the residents.
I will give you my residence history.
Your CV.
So my CV exactly. So, and it also kind of is the story of how I got called Sparky.
Oh, great.
Uh, when I was 14 years old, I was introduced to the residence, and I hated it. It was by my father. I was really into Devo at the time, and I was listening to a ton of Devo. And he came home from work one day. I was listening to Devo's Satisfaction, and he says, "You're listening to this again?" And I said, "Yep." And he goes, "You want to hear a real version of Satisfaction?" And I said, "Sure." And he pulls out his Satisfaction Loser is congruent to Weed 45 and puts it on. And I was just like, what in the hell is this? This is awful. As a side note, it's been almost 25 years later. I still hate the Residents' Satisfaction.
Oh,
I
me
still
too.
cannot
Yeah,
handle that song.
I'm not a fan
Um,
of that.
and it's it's I just have a negative association with it.
Yeah.
And I was just like, okay, what? Why are you showing this to me? So then he goes and pulls out Duck Stab, Buster Glenn, and he jumps straight to Birthday Boy. And that was my second Residence track I heard. And it was just even worse. And I legitimately had a bad dream about that song that night.
That's all. That's so residential, isn't it?
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was like I didn't know that not only did people make music like this, but other people bought this kind of music. Like, come on, Dad, what are you doing?
Like,
So,
yeah.
so that would have been about 1998, 99. And I was in a record store one day looking for some Devo stuff, Devo CD, like just see if there's anything new. Of course,
Mhm.
there wasn't in
No.
the late 90s.
Mm.
And I'm flipping through the stuff and I go over to the residence section, just like, you know what? Let's just see what they have. Maybe I can get my dad a gift or something like
Yeah.
that. And what they had was Wormwood.
Huh.
And because Wormwood was new at the time. And I'm just like, have a $20 bill burning a hole in my pocket. And I'm like, you know what? Let's buy this album. I get it home and I'm intrigued. I was really into Firefall and How to Get Ahead. That was like my favorite track at
Yeah.
the time. And Mr. Misery and Judas Saves. And I think that was it. Kind of poppy tracks, so to
Yeah, I
speak.
think that's my general relationship with Wormwood at this point. I like those tracks, and the rest are kind of background at this point. But I do
Yeah,
like a lot. I like it all. I like a lot of it.
it was just something
Yeah.
that was like, okay, this is kind of weird, but whatever. And then maybe a few months go by, and again, I must have had another $20 bill burning a hole in my pocket, and I go back, and they had the only record, or no, they had three CDs. I think they had Third Reich and Roll, they had Mark of the Mole, and Meet the Residents,
Uh-huh.
and they were all the same price. And I'm sitting there going, why am I going to buy an album that has two songs on it? Or why am I going to buy an album with like four songs on it? I'll get the one that has 11 songs on it, or
Yeah,
whatever
the
Residents had.
normal amount of music.
Exactly. Um, and so I get Meet the Residents, and it's something else. But reading those liner notes, which had
Yeah.
since been reprinted in the preserved versions and all kind of other re-releases, it really struck a chord with me. There was one line in particular, and it said something along the lines of, look past the weirdness and just listen to the compositions, something along those lines. And that clicked. I was like, wait a minute, if I can just listen to this music for being unique compositions and not just banging on a piano or banging on some sort of percussion.
Whatever they play on that album.
Exactly. Maybe there's something deeper here. And it just completely, it was like a switch going off. It just clicked. And then from there, as we were kind of mentioning before, you kind of go into collector mode, and the next thing you know, I think the next thing I got was The Eyes Scream, which was a VHS narrated by Penn and Teller. So that was like my third thing I ever had of theirs, and that was such a great introduction to kind of the body and breadth of their work up until the early 90s, and really, really does a great job with the mystique and the mythology and the mystery behind the residents. So, and that just pulls you in more and more. And so I just kind of became a fan and started collecting more and more. And at the time, Ralph America was under another company that was called Astro Pitch. And Astro Pitch was the company that was silk screening all the shirts and the sweatshirts and printing the posters and doing all the orders. And so Astro Pitch pretty much worked with Ralph America, and then Anticon, which is a San Francisco Bay Area kind of alternative hip hop record label. And so very kind of opposite ends of the spectrum. And they were looking for a web designer. I know nothing about web design, but I just emailed them like I had in the past made a Flash animation for Bach is Dead, and it was awful, absolutely awful, and does not exist thankfully anymore.
Oh, good.
But,
I've seen that.
It was some weird tentacle monster dancing to Bach is Dead. So I sent it to them, and they were like, "Hey, yeah, you are not qualified for the web designer job, but if you just want to be an intern, feel free." And I'm like, great. And an intern like that, you're pretty much just, putting labels on packages and mailing stuff out and picking up coffee. I mean, there's pretty mundane work for I think I would have been 19 at the time. But I had a lot of fun. And eventually, in 2004, there was the commercial DVD was released, and they were having a screening party in this giant warehouse, this huge warehouse. They're doing a screening of the commercial DVD. And I should back up because this is where I got Sparky. I was such an enthusiastic go-getter at Astro Pitch. You got this kid. I was driving probably like 50 miles round trip each day to go work unpaid, to go stuff envelopes and get coffee and pick up lunch. And they were like, "Man, you were enthusiastic like a little dog." Sparky.
That's perfect.
So that's where the name came from, was I was just such a bright-eyed go-getter. And so doing this screening at this warehouse in Oakland, and they're like, "We need to get this projector. Hardy Fox has it in his storage unit. Can you drive up and go pick it up?" And that's just like, what are you talking about? And so I'm just like kind of overflowing at this concept, at this idea of driving up to go pick up a projector from Hardy. And it turns out he actually lived like 5 miles from where I grew up. So it was really convenient. It was like, oh, I know exactly where that is. I can get there. And it was kind of funny when you think about the residents being kind of hiding in plain sight. And for me to think,
residing.
I have passed this man's house hundreds of times, and just had no clue. And it was kind of even more fun that way. So we got to lunch.
Yeah.
And just completely hit it off. Just such a kind, genuine, intellectually smart on the fringe
Yeah.
individual. And he just was very gentle and soft spoken and had a way of just making you feel important. I was a nobody. I was a 19-year-old college kid who just really liked the music, and he just made you feel like such a important person. And so we just really, really hit it off. And maybe we had lunch a couple of times uh, over the next few months, and he was really into Halo. I don't know if you know this. Hardy was.
What?
Yep. Hardy was a big gamer.
That's intense. I don't. That's a scoop. I don't think I've ever heard this.
In fact, I have Hardy's Xbox One in my garage right now. So
I don't know how to react to this.
You don't need to react to it. It's just what it is.
Yeah.
He was a huge. It's not that he loved all games.
No, yeah.
What he loved about Halo was that you could play the game however you want. You could approach any encounter however you want. You didn't have to follow what the programmers intended. Yes, there's the intended path, but you could just walk around everything, or you could, choose to engage or not engage, or glitch out of the map. Like, he just loved the amount of freedom that it gave. And so we would just and he didn't have a lot of other people around that he could just play video games with. So he'd invite me over and we would just two-player play Halo a bunch.
That's insane.
So we just kind of bonded over that. And then like that January, because that was originally in like October that we met. Yeah. And that January, February, he's like, hey, we got approached by, he invited me over at night. And it's like, at night, what are you going to do? He's like, just come by. So I go over. He's like, the residents have been approached by What Is Music Festival in Australia. And I'm like, I don't know what that is. He's like, they want the residents to headline the festival, and our normal tour manager that we work with, Hein Fokker, it just wouldn't make sense to fly him from the Netherlands out to San Francisco and then out to Australia. So do you want to do the tour managing? And I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know anything about this whatsoever. And he's like, that's okay. We'll figure it out together. And I'm just like, what? Me? Like, I've known you for like 3 months, and our relationship is playing Halo together and going out to lunch, and you want to just put me in charge of this? And he's like, yeah. So I tried to talk myself out of it 100 times. Like, this seems too good to be true. But eventually I couldn't talk myself out of it anymore. Yeah. And we went and, had an absolute blast. It was a just complete and utter total shit show as far as the actual shows were concerned, because they were just nonstop technical glitches, errors. Some well-known stories are when one of the residents forgot their password to their computer on stage and could not get it. So they're meant to start the show, and they have the Ableton Live software to start the backing tracks and stuff like that. And the computer had been shut down without their knowledge. So get on stage and it's shut down. So they have to reboot it. And then it comes to the, enter your password, and just completely froze. Completely like, I don't know. I can't think right now. I'm on stage. We're supposed to be playing. And that burst into a wild and crazy rendition of Smelly Tongues. So there was a newsletter version of this story that I think I don't know if
Yeah,
the acts were forgotten or if they were
adjusted.
adjusted,
Yeah,
but it was not Kamikaze Lady. It was, which is what the newsletter said. It was Smelly Tongues, and it was.
actually, I did find something that it might have been a combination of this. I found a bootleg of the 13th anniversary show where right before Jailhouse Rock, the emulator stopped working, and so the singing resident screams, and then they go right into Kamikaze Lady whilst they try and get the emulator. So I was like, oh, maybe that was it.
Is probably a combo
Yeah.
story then. Okay. Well, there you go. There's some
Yeah.
insider. But that show just nonstop technical issues, which you can hear a lot of them in the Way We Were live CD, and they did such an amazing job making those recordings sound good.
Yeah, that's my favorite live project by the Residents. Way We
Is
Were.
it?
Yeah, I really love it. It's like because everyone bigs up the 13th anniversary show, and I just say, if you like the 13th anniversary show, the 33rd is that plus 13 or whatever it was, you know. So it's just
it was. I was trying to get a. How did I phrase it? Maybe we'll have to wait a couple more years, but I was trying to get some other Way We Were stuff redone and branded as like, you know, the 15th anniversary of the 20th anniversary of the 13th anniversary show, because that's pretty much, it was the 20th anniversary of the 13th anniversary, which is such a great, just rolls off your tongue. It really had an amazing set list. Like if you go through those songs, it is such a great retrospective of their career up to that point. With a couple exceptions, like I was, there's not as, there's one God in Three Persons track, so that's better than none.
That's right.
There was, I don't know. There
was nothing from before Duck Stab is one thing I noticed. Yeah. Well, but I think.
Here is. It starts with Meet the Residents. It starts with.
No, but not on the CDs.
Really?
Yeah, the CD starts with Lizard Lady. I think the recordings of Breath and Length and the other one, whatever. No, Guile Badot and Breath and Length, I think, have gotten out there. I think they played it on your podcast, the Bogcast.
Oh, then I was saying in that case. Oh man.
Yeah, the CD just starts with Lizard Lady, so.
Oh, okay. Well, my version doesn't.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Okay, well that's good to know.
Yeah, I feel like maybe it's starting with Lizard Lady, both of the CDs too, both of the versions.
It's probably due to runtime because that show was surprisingly long.
Because I think maybe the CD starting with Lizard Lady is like a callback to the 13th anniversary show, which always started with Lizard Lady, except for maybe once.
Yeah. Okay. Number one, Guy Lombardo, and then to Lizard Lady. Okay, so those first two tracks must be cut off.
Yeah. Guess I got rid of them.
There we go. But yeah, I must have the same version that you do.
Yeah, sure. Of course you do. Yeah, yeah.
So from there, I just started doing like kind of odd jobs for them, all just kind of for fun, organizing old photos and negatives and running their old eBay store for a little bit. So that's when they sold that first performance eyeball on eBay, and a collection of other things that probably not be appropriate for the internet these days. Um, and
Hair.
just had a lot of fun.
Resident hair. They sell that on eBay.
Yeah.
That's the plot of the movie, isn't it? Someone's selling Randy's ashes on eBay.
Yes, exactly.
You know.
Well, Randy has passed away, and
selling his ashes. Anyway,
it was kind of quiet for a little bit until Bunny Boy, and they're like, "Hey, Sparky, you want to come on the?" At the time, it was just a U.S. leg of the Bunny Boy tour, and it was just the East Coast. And I'm like, yeah, I've got a full-time job now, and it's a little harder for me to just drop everything and go, but sure, why not? And leading up to that, filmed a bunch of the Bunny Boy web series, which or I guess I would be considered season 1, which acted as a lot of the intermission and the backdrop videos for the Bunny Boy tour. And that was a hard tour. That was a very difficult tour physically because there was so much travel involved, and driving from place to place in the middle of the night. Like, it was not this luxurious it wasn't Australia, we'll put it that way. And then from there, things kind of, I don't want to say wound down for me, but it got to a different stage in my life where I was working full time. I started teaching night class at local art college, and just got like kind of overwhelmed with life, and so I've done things here and there for them, but not so much, not as involved since probably 2010-ish.
Yeah, well, that's how life is, isn't it? So,
it is.
Yeah, we all do things, and we all have stages.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was gonna go to my next question if you didn't have anything to say.
Please do.
Well, how about the Bogcasts? How did that get started?
Oh, I forgot about that. That was kind of.
I was hoping you'd mention it, but.
So that goes back to Hardy. Hardy was always at the forefront of technology, and read a ton of technology magazines and science magazines, and just general keeping up with the next big thing. And he had heard of these things called podcasts. And so this would have been 2005. And I'm like, I don't know what that is. I don't know what a podcast is. I don't think anybody knew what a podcast was. He's like, do you want to host it? Like, we want to do one. You want to host it? It's like, sure. I don't know what that means. And to give you an idea of like weird fringe technology things, back again in 2005, Sony had released their first handheld gaming system, the PSP. Okay. And you could play games on the PSP, or you could buy movies on these little, they were called UMDs. They were these little awkward mini CD, like not a mini disc. That would have been too convenient.
Yeah.
That format already existed. They were something different. And Hardy was like, we need to start releasing stuff on UMD. It's like, why? Because like that's the next new thing. It's like, he just always was one step ahead of everyone else, almost, obviously to a fault at times, thinking about UMDs. But like, let's do this podcast. And I'm like, I don't know what a podcast is, but we'll figure it out. And so I would lock myself in the closet of my apartment on Haight Street, and just talk to, he would give me contacts to different people that were associated with the residents, and we would have conversations. Some of my favorite ones were so
Actually, that was going to be my question. Yeah, who was your favorite interviewer?
my favorite interviewer.
Or just your favorite episode or whatever you want to put on.
So I love, in hindsight, I love the Nolan Cook episode.
I haven't listened to that one actually.
Because you see a slightly more human side to Nolan, and I appreciate that.
It might be the only interview he's ever given. I've never seen anything from him elsewhere.
Yeah, it might be.
It could be, maybe, but yeah.
I absolutely loved the Kevin Inc. one, mostly because Kevin and I are just good friends, and like we had brunch together last weekend. Yeah. Like we've maintained a good friendship over the years. The most awkward one, so bad, was the Brian Poole one.
Oh no!
And Brian Poole was such a kind, sweet man. And this is to any of you people out there who want to know, when you're interviewing someone, do your damn research before you get on the phone with them. Oh God, it was painfully awkward. I would ask questions, and he was so kind in his replies. And like I asked him, like, oh, what's next for Ronaldo and the Loaf? And he's like, I haven't talked to the Loaf, whose name's escaping me, in like 15 years, and starts getting like teary-eyed. And I'm like,
oh no,
oh, shit, I didn't know that. I'm so sorry. Like clearly that was a sore spot. And now, since my understanding, since then they've reconnected and everything.
Yeah.
Yes. But at that time they hadn't. And it was just like, oh, I felt so awful. I mean, that's like saying, you know, hey Sparky, how's your dad? It's like, who's been dead for 20 years. Oh, I didn't know that. Like, that should have been something I knew.
Yeah.
You know.
Oh, I can imagine.
So, and then what was worse, because all this back then was recorded not with Skype. Skype would have been too new. It was something called Gizmo Project, which was like the precursor to Skype. So I would do these long distance calls and record them on VoIP, and I forgot to hit record. What? So we had to do the whole thing over again. So this poor guy, it's the middle of the night for him, and he gives me like 3 hours of his night, and he was so kind and so generous. Even after I asked the most like inappropriate question, like, oh God, to this day, I just like, I can't imagine running into him being like, hi. So he has all of my respect, because I messed that up through and through.
Yeah, I really, he's, I think we're now doing Life Directly from Portsmouth, which is only an hour away from me. So if any of them are still there, I could do they're one of the few people I could do a physical res interview with, you know? But I think one of them's in Wales now. So.
I quite a few of them were actually, the Bogcasts were in person. The Star Sutherland episode, which is also a really good one, because he's a producer. So he's not involved creatively. He's not looking at it as like, oh, how do we do? It's like, he's looking at this from a business perspective and just making the best possible product. And he was so knowledgeable and so kind, and just had him in my living room sipping tea. So that was really, and weirdly enough, my mom had met him on an airplane like a year prior. It was like, oh, my son, he's working with some group called The Residents. He's like, oh, I know them. It's like, it was just this really weird situation. And then Eric Feldman, we did that in his apartment, which was a ton of fun, but also incredibly noisy, because he also lived on Haight Street, where it's just nonstop buses going by. So not the best audio quality.
Yeah. You there's another interview with Eric Feldman you did a few years ago with the other Residents podcast, which Title in Limbo. Let's talk about Title in Limbo.
Well, it wasn't Title in Limbo. That was the other one. This was Homemade Conversations.
You're right. I got them mixed up. Everyone ignore that, actually.
Rewind.
Yeah, those were the two that were running at that time.
Yeah, did that. Went back out and interviewed Eric Drew Feldman again, and again, always just a. He's just a class act. He's just a nice.
Where was that? I don't think they say it. You say in the interview, but it seemed like it was in a restaurant or something.
It was in a cafe. It was in a French cafe.
Oh.
It was in a very loud French cafe, and which that place is normally really quiet and mellow. So like, hey, you want to go to Cafe du Soleil? Yeah, sure. And we go down. It was like they were playing samba music, and it was just like we had to wait for a table, which never happens there. I was like, oh, okay, well, works for me. Interestingly enough, I can reveal this now because how long? That was like 2 years ago now, right?
Roundabout. I don't remember how long ago. Probably.
The bleeped out project in the interview. If you recall.
Sorry, I keep having to mute because someone's being very loud in the other room. So okay. Yeah.
I'm not really hearing it, so
good.
When he's talking about an upcoming project, and I keep bleeping it out in that interview, it is Dog Stab. Boom! Now you know. So finally come to fruition. But back then it was in its infancy of let's the residents want to put together a Duck Stab tour and a Dying Dog combo. So there you go. You're
great. I got the scoop. No, I didn't. They did. Yeah. Now I can re-listen to that with new context of that's what it's talking about. Yeah.
It's something actually. I'm really, again. I'm. How do I say this in the polite way? I'm really excited to hear it.
Yeah.
Because, again, I have nothing but love and respect for Hardy. But the residents really like to deconstruct their own music, as you know, when played live, to the point that most songs aren't even recognizable as being themselves. And one thing I'm excited for this tour, and this is just me being a snooty old man, is I have hope that it's going to sound more album-like.
Oh. Like closer to how the album is.
Yeah, and I'm only basing that off of the God in Three Persons live, where it's like, whoa, this isn't this reimagining of God in Three Persons, it's like an evolution of God in Three Persons. And like, that was an absolutely amazing live show.
Yeah.
So I have no proof that anything like this is going to happen for Duck Stab Live, and in fact, I'm going to be backpacking. I'm going to be gone when it airs on Night Flight, and I'm tortured inside because of it. But it's I'm looking forward to it.
What was I going to say? Nope. Oh yeah, no, yeah, here it is. I think I remember an interview Homer did about dog stab. Says that the duck stab elements really is sort of like a crowd pleasing because he knows people don't like listening to the new stuff typically, and so if they're gonna do a whole they're gonna do a whole show of dying dog and all that. Give them a little bit of a treat of duck stab, so maybe it will be close to the originals. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. I look forward to it. I heard the residents play Die 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 at they did a like a reading special performance of when Brick Eaters had first come out.
I think I saw the live stream of that. I think that was
that was the one that was like, and they did Die Die, and it sounded amazing. So I don't know who says they don't like the new stuff.
I mean, I mean, I like the new stuff.
Shameless residence plug: if you have not read Brick Eaters, do it. It is a legitimately good book. It's an actual enjoy. Take the residence name off of it, and it is still an enjoyable, fun book.
I'm not too big of a reader, so I haven't read any of the
associated
fiction.
I don't read.
I should give it a shot. I don't know if it's in print, but I'll scour for it.
You should definitely, because it's again, you don't need to be a big reader. It's not a difficult read. I am not a big reader at all. I read it on back when I would travel a lot more for work. I just read it on airplane, like over 2 or 3 plane rides. It goes pretty quick. It's just, I mean, you know the residents. They're just they're ludicrous, and that book is ludicrous, and it's just so much fun. So I would definitely recommend, even if you're not a reader. If you are a Residence fan, all the better. If you're not a Residence fan, still just a wild trip.
That's great. No, I imagine it's great. They haven't failed me yet on any level. Yeah, what other questions do I have? Do you have any other antidotes?
Any other anecdotes?
Any other antidotes? Yeah. Because you covered most of my questions that I wrote down in the history section. Where you talked about your history.
Let's see. Not Available is the greatest piece work of art created by Homo sapiens since the dawn of humankind. Yeah, I mean, honestly, nothing that's like super. I mean, okay. I can tell you a total funny anecdote that probably get me in trouble, but it's just one that's always stuck out with me.
Okay.
Which was in Australia. I might have even told this story before, I don't remember. And we were in Sydney. And we were in Sydney. We arrived in Sydney the day before Sydney's Gay Pride Parade. It was Pride Week in Sydney. And Sydney is known as having one of the largest pride parades in the world. Bigger than San Francisco, it turns out. And we get there, and we're in this big fancy hotel, and our rooms overlook the swimming pool. And I think it was Molly's room. Walk in there, and her and Hardy are standing on the balcony overlooking the pool. And I join them and look down, and it's just a bunch of oiled, chiseled bodies in Speedos lounging by the pool. And Molly just looks down and goes, wow, Sausage City. And it's just like a hilarious moment to begin with. But in context of the residents, between Wormwood, Bad Day on the Midway, like she just pulled the absolute perfect residents quote out just to use that exact moment. So that's one of my favorite residents memories.
What is your I was going to ask what's your favorite residence project, but I think it might be not available.
Yeah, that's a good question. Every Residence album is in my top 5 Residence albums because I can always fit, you know what I mean? Like I just find Not Available was, I think, the absolute turning point for me when I got it. It made me go from being a fan to being a like uber fan, where it's just like, this is beyond anything else I've ever heard. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I've never heard anything else like that before, and I haven't heard anything else like that since. And it does such an amazing job of blending, kind of this musical, kind of this, how do I say, this kind of prog rock progressive with absolute gibberish but being beautiful at the same time. Like that is not a rough, harsh album. And it's not like beautiful like parts of Animal Lover are, where they're more like classical and obviously trying to be more like, to me, Not Available just exists on a different plane, and I don't even know how to put words to it.
It's really perfect, when you think about it.
As I try to understand more about the album, which I just don't know a whole lot about, best I can figure out is the lyrics are more about having words that sound interesting than they are having meaning. And I have no proof of that. It's just like I've tried for over 20 years, 21 years now, to figure out any semblance of meaning in that album, and I can't.
Yeah, that's something I've noticed with it. It's like that's what makes it a universal album, you know? The fact that there's no specifics in it, really. It's just like, this is what it feels like when you're sad, and this is another song about what it feels like when you're sad. The end. And you're like, that's it. That is what it feels like. And it doesn't say I'm sad because I lost my girl, or maybe it does say that and I haven't heard it, or it says this. And because it doesn't say I'm sad because of this or anything, you say I instantly relate, and these vague lines relate to the situation I'm in. You know?
Yeah.
It's just perfect like that. Really,
Trying to find sorry, this is going to be a dead air for a moment.
No, I'll speed it up.
So it's the part in Making of a Soul where the porcupine. A huge, easy, cozy wants our kiss to triumph, but unbelievable admits some questions receive a guarantee to shake you up. And then we wonder, but fantasy moves ahead, for the Iceman just took a turn for the better, and a small object flies from his mouth, a daring jewel, scales down a belted ear system, and you have the modular, optimistic silver original. Welcome to the offshoots of Jupiter. There, I've tried decades. And it's okay, because it doesn't matter, because it sounds beautiful. It sounds amazing. it and it was, I think I was just at the age where it just, I didn't know you could do stuff like that. I didn't know that artists were allowed to do things that other people wouldn't
I
understand.
still have no idea how they get away with a lot of it. The like when I try to when I listen to other musicians or I try to write my own music, I don't know how the Residents create such vivid imagery with like the 7 layers of metaphors they incorporate into every one of their songs. You know, like I've just never heard anyone else do it, and yeah, I'm just like, how do you write that?
I don't either.
The answer is you don't.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And you know,
Yeah,
there was a quote from our friend Gerald Casali from probably in the mid or late 90s, because this was back when I had internet for new, and again was obsessed with Devo. Someone had asked him a bunch of like, what are your opinions on, and then listed like 20 bands or 30 bands, and he just gave like one-liners about all of them. And the one stuck with me was for the Residents. He said, like, amazing guys who are still managing to make amazing music after all this time. Where it's like, and it's true.
It is.
It's like they're still, after all this time, still able to put out unique, interesting art that you can have your opinions that you liked it better 5 years ago or 10 years ago or 50 years ago, but they're still coming up with new original things all the time.
Yeah, it's really great. Yeah.
So thanks, Residents.
Thank you, Residents, for all of the things you do. I can't remember when I started recording, but I think we clocked an hour since the meeting started. But it doesn't feel like an hour. We can keep going if you want.
I got nothing to do today.
Okay. Me neither, really. Okay. Out of the Bunny Boy and one Way We Were, what's your favorite out of those two?
Sonically or experientially?
Oh, well, let's go sonically first.
I think I prefer Bunny Boy.
Oh.
I don't know. I really loved that album. I thought that album did a really good job of kind of blending kind of new and older sound.
Yeah.
Because the Residents up until that point had really started to become a lot more reliant on loops and kind of pre-made music, so to speak. And so I felt the Bunny Boy was a really good step back into original compositions and not using a lot of new technology in order to do so. As well, I know this is gonna sound so awful, but like I went to every single Way We Were rehearsal. I listened to every recording a million times. Like I've heard it so much, you know what I mean? It just gets to be a point where I still really enjoy it, but I enjoy parts of it more than I do the whole, if that makes sense.
You listen to it so much, you got the 2 secret intro tracks.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas the Bunny Boy, the live shows, I don't even think I've ever heard a live recording of it at this point.
Yeah, they put out the first live album of it this year. That's insane. Like more than a decade later.
Yeah. You know, at peak Bunny Boy demand. now. But again, that was a much harder tour, you know, and people got sick on it, and just traveling from, it was DC up the coast, then out to Ohio, and then to Illinois. Like it was a lot of actual driving, and it was in the winter time, so it was cold and snowy and rainy, and but that was just a fun that was just a fun time. That said, any of my favorite live performances, QB. QB is the other project of mine that it's like, I feel like every single person on the planet, doesn't matter how old you are, how young you are, where you're from, every single person on the planet should be able to listen to QB and go, wow, this is just the greatest live performance ever. And clearly that hasn't been the case, but I could just sit there and go, who could not appreciate QB? So that I think is probably one of my other just all-time favorite projects. I think I even another story I remember telling Hardy once, like QB was probably my favorite live performance. I said that if I had been there, I probably would have cried at the end because that closing, that outro with when Hound Dog comes to a close and all that stuff, just still to this day gives me the shivers.
Yeah.
And he replied, I did cry at the end. It's like it's a powerful piece of American history done in such a powerful way that only the residents can do. So I don't know. That's another one that I have an absolute connection to.
Yeah. When I'm not some days of the week, my favorite residence project of all time is just Blackberry by itself. That's perfection to me. Yeah. I just love every second of Blackberry. QB's up there. But like,
and the other thing with Blackberry is when Organism kind of wraps up and kind of does this huge dramatic, I don't know, I love it. Absolutely.
It's beautiful. It's like, to me, lots of people say they don't like how after whatever Mark of the Mole they got less harsh and stuff, but I say just listen to Blackberry. Listen to those 15 minutes of Blackberry and you'll be proven wrong, like instantly.
Okay. So all people that think that the Residents ended after Mark of the Mole, they're completely wrong.
Awful. I hate this.
So wrong. The Residents began after Mark of the Mole, in my opinion. Like,
exactly.
Or can't say they began. I can say they found their footing. Tunes of Two Cities, it's tame.
It's a what's it called? It's a stepping stone. It's like
it is. Yeah, they're learning how to use their emulators and their samplers. Big Bubble, that was another one that took me a good 10, 15 years to get. And once it did, I was just like, okay, this is pure awesome. Like I commute to work in elementary school. I commute to work with Big Bubble going like, this is how I'm going to get ready to deal with a bunch of third graders.
Big Bubble is kind of faded for me a little. Not that it's bad, but when I first heard it, I was at my worst mental health I've ever been in my life. And this screaming man with guitars in the background, I was like, this is how I feel. But now that I'm better, I find myself not turning Big Bubble on as much. But it's still great. Yeah.
To me, I loved that you went from listen to the Mark of the Mole and listen to Final Confrontation, and you'll hear it's so complex and there's so much going on. It's so kind of like it was when music was starting, when synthesizers and stuff were starting to get much more involved to the point that you could have these crazy compositions that you could not have without an electronic instrument. And that's just the way that so much of the music industry was going. Things are getting overly produced, overly complicated, overly, built upon. And then the Big Bubble comes along and just undoes all of that. It's all taken away. It's all right. we're gonna do a piano, a guitar, a drum, and is that it?
Vocals
Yeah.
is, yeah, that's it.
Yeah, and then an occasional synth sound.
Yeah.
And it just, and then add a lot of reverb so it sounds like they're singing in a cave. And it's just, it again, it was just like the, okay, you think we're getting comfortable doing this? No, 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 no. Now we're gonna just turn it on its head again. Um, and yeah, but it's an acquired taste. Big Bubble
Yeah.
is completely an acquired taste.
I understand the people who really don't like it, but I also understand the people who love it. You know.
But the thing with it though is that Big Bubble, that's just, then you have George and James, and more importantly, Stars and Hank. And to me, Stars and Hank is one of the greatest things they released, like up until that point.
Mm-hmm.
And it's mostly because of the Hank side, and the Hank side is so well done. And some of my favorite stuff are the B-sides, the stuff that was on like Liver Music and
I think it was just Liver Music. No, Daydream Believer, but Daydream Believer was what the Hank stuff was on.
Yeah, that had like Dear Brother and Picture of Life's other stuff. Like those to me are some of my all-time favorite. Like that one section of music to me is just, again, couldn't ask for anything more than that.
Yeah, to me, I really love Hank, but Salazar I could do without.
Yeah, I same place, but fun in its own way.
Yeah.
But
I find that these middling well, I mean, George and Hank, I find they're great study music, like background music, because when you're hearing them, like, oh, you hear these compositions vaguely, but when you have like a pen and paper and you're focusing on it, you're like, oh, this is kind of repetitive, isn't it?
Yeah.
How long is Rhapsody in Blue this long normally?
Oh yeah, it's normally 17 minutes. But leading up to that, you've got violinist flats, whatever you want to call it, which is another just absolutely perfect piece of 25 minutes of music or whatever.
I love that album. That's my favorite.
And it's just like, how can someone say the Residents, they lost their edge, they lost being good? And like, no, because you can listen to anything after that. You just, if you go from, I listened to Mark and the Mole and then I listened to Hunters, and that must be what the Residents were like afterwards. Like, well, then you're gonna have a bad time.
Yeah.
But if you're gonna ignore God in Three Persons, which is the other greatest thing ever done besides QB and Not Available, and Snakey Wake, and I don't know, just
I could list my top 5 right here, probably.
Let's do it. Go for it.
Well, I really, Lonely Teenager is my favorite thing by them. Well, yeah, it's an odd choice, but I just love the atmosphere on that. And then Violinist Fats, again, which is an atmosphere thing, because it's just, you're in a cave for half an hour. And then Have a Bad Day and Eskimo. And I can't think of a fifth one at the moment. Those are my top 4. And the theme is atmosphere. I'm just all about take me somewhere sonically.
Yeah.
And leave me there. Lonely Teenager does that the best because it takes you somewhere, but it also, that place is a haunted house and Randy's telling you scary stories. And that's just perfect to me.
Whenever you bring it up or mention the album title, do you do the Once There Was a Lonely Teenager?
When I was a lonely teenager. Well, yeah, and
just repeat that 30 times.
I just turned 20 this year, and I'm sad because I can't refer to myself as a lonely teenager anymore. As a lonely teenager.
you're 20.
I'm 20 years old. Wow.
Happy birthday. Congratulations.
Thank you. I was 20 in March, which was 2 months ago. But thank you. Happy birthday to you as well.
Thank you. 37 earlier this week.
Wow. Ooh.
Old. These grays. These are real.
You're gonna be in a lonely teenager song now, monologuing about the wonder of weird tour. No, the other one, the one you were in, Way We Were.
Way We Were.
Yeah, you're like, oh
man, that was, there was so there were 2 one-off shows the Residents did.
Mm-hmm.
One was in Berkeley at like this big museum thing.
Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about. What was the second one?
So that was the first one. They had like an actual orchestra with them.
Yeah. So Long Sam, I think it's that.
I think so.
Yeah.
I need to try to find a recording of that because that was interesting.
I think there is an official video on YouTube called So Long Sam. Yeah.
And then is that where the singing resident has like a black dunce cap and all black suit?
Yeah.
Then there was another one also in Berkeley that I went to, and that one that building was filled. Like you could not have fit more people into that show.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's another one like a year later, also in Berkeley, at this little like workshop theater. And I think it was kind of the introduction of Randy.
Mm-hmm. You mean, what is it? Sam's Enchanted Evening?
It could be.
Yeah. Because.
And there was like 6 people in the crowd. And I'm like, okay, where did everybody go? Did they just not advertise this?
Yeah. I wasn't a Residents fan at that time, but I think maybe that show wasn't necessarily billed as a Residents thing. I think it was billed as just Randy Rose solo, but maybe I'm wrong.
Okay, so Long Sam was the that was the one where it was a white kind of dunce cap thing with the orchestra. And what you said, Sam's Enchanted Evening?
Yeah, Sam's Enchanted Evening should be which is kind of like an adaptation of So Long Sam, but with Randy as the lead.
Yes, that was the other one. And performances, let's see. So Long Sam. Okay, yeah, so it was at the Berkeley Art Museum. Oh, the Marsh, Cabaret at the Marsh. So yeah, so it was a difference between a year, but I must have seen it like the first night or something like that, and there was like nobody there. I was like, how is nobody here? But that one was something that just crazy, just absolutely nuts. Just like kind of the beginning of Randy and the wildness that Randy can bring to a stage. That was an absolute blast.
Because I think, not to be a weird fan, I think Randy debuted on Talking Light, which was, I think, 2 years before.
I think it was 2009. It was
2010, I think.
Okay.
But Sam's Enchanted Evening was really the start of him as we know.
Yeah, so Sam's Enchanted So Long Sam was 2010. I'm looking at the historical. Sam's Enchanted Evening was October of 2011. So, and then in New York in 2012.
Yeah.
Yeah, those were fun shows because they were just it was kind of renaissance of the Residents stage stage show.
Yeah. There's no as far as I know, there's no official release of Sam's Enchanted Evening, and maybe there's not even a bootleg. I haven't actually looked for one.
Yeah,
but
I mean, granted, it looks like it went on for like a week, but
Yeah. Mm.
Yeah, that
Oh,
was fun because it was just something totally different.
it was very, yeah. What a great, yeah. I can imagine it being great because from what I've read, it was just Randy and then a pianist, right? It was very minimalist,
Yeah,
right? If I read it, if you're
that's right.
yeah, very good. I can imagine. I've only ever seen the Residents once live when I was a lonely teenager. um,
Which show or which tour was
it
that?
was In Between Dreams, the
Um,
UK version, which the UK version was exactly the same as the US, except um, Wrestling Like a Banshee was replaced with Voodoo Doll,
hmm.
and was a bit sad at that. And also Cowboy Waltz was replaced with Buckaroo Blues theme, and I was also upset a little bit, but it was they were good songs anyway.
So I didn't see Weird or the In Between Dreams.
That's ooh okay.
Yeah, it was bad. I was
Well, there's a DVD out, so
there
grab
is.
that.
I saw Talking Light. That was a good one.
I would, yeah, like because Lonely Teenager is my favorite album by them. I would kill to see Talking Light live or any,
Um,
as a DVD.
do you which uh live versions of that do you have?
Of Talking Light,
Yeah.
I have quite a collection of live versions of that. I have like 12 shows from the first leg.
Oh, okay. So you probably had Santa Cruz,
I think I do have.
which would have been the first show since they
Yeah, I
usually.
have the first show. Yeah, definitely. 100%.
Well, never mind. I won't send it to you.
Oh. Ooh. Yeah. I mean, unless you got 2 extra tracks on it that I don't.
It's broken into 3 parts.
Yeah.
And each one's like half an hour long ish.
Yeah. I really yeah, they released every show of that, didn't they? On digitally. Yeah. I've only ever listened to the shows from the first leg because I know later on they changed it up, and the officially released CD of it has Demons Dance Alone replaced with Smelly Tongues, which I'm like, I like Smelly Tongues and all, but it doesn't really set the tone of Talking Light, does it? Mm-hmm. It's like kind of setting up some false promises here, like, oh look, we're gonna be crazy and do Smelly Tongues, but no, this is more of a Demons Dance Alone vibe.
I'm gonna send you this article link. It was from a review from the local San Francisco newspaper about Sam's Enchanted Evening. It was a review of it. It's pretty good.
That's great. I'll use it. I'll reference it because I don't know if you know this, but I am one of 2 people who is involved with the Meet the Residents wiki.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I'm one of the 2 owners of it, which is fun.
Who's the other?
His name is Jax. I don't know how to pronounce it, but he's Australian, and he doesn't talk much. He's very private, so he's in the Discord servers as Imaginary Jax.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I will say hi.
Say hi to him. Convince him to give you an article.
Unless you just need to fill up space.
Yeah, we're around. I mean, that's not a lot to write about, really. No. Yeah. We only really go up to Mark of the Mall. We don't really think it's worth talking about after that.
Anything after that, is there?
No, I don't know. But yeah.
Well, excellent.
I think we're done, if you'd like to be done.
I think I am going to remember that giant glass of water that I had?
You're done.
I'm going to go release it back into the wild.
Okay. Into the world of water.
Return from whence you came.
Great. Well, I hope you had a nice time being interviewed by me, and you weren't offended by any of my questions.
I appreciate the questions, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah. How's it feel to be on the other side?
Oh, kind of weird.
Yeah.
I'm really used to it. Be on the lookout, or we will be doing a freak show CD-ROM.
Ooh. Oh yeah, I should have asked about that. The
Twitch
Twitches.
probably in the next few weeks. As of May 29th, 2021. Hopefully in the next 2 or 3 weeks, we will be organizing that.
Great. Yeah.
So, and that was like the first CD-ROM of theirs that I played, and I played the hell out of it because I mean, it's not really a game. It's not really anything to play. It's more of just something to explore. But because again, it was like it was a band and they made a game, and it wasn't that awful Adventures of the Smart Patrol, which is just bad. And we don't talk about it.
Rather not. Yeah.
So,
That can kill the industry. I don't know if it did. It might have. What?
No, it's not bad. It's just
Oh yeah, it's interesting for certain.
phoned in. But
Yeah.
Excellent. Well,
yeah,
thank you.
See you. Have fun.
Rest of the weekend.
I'll try.
Thanks, Lisa.
Goodbye.